Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. The Ratana Sutta. The city of Vesali was afflicted by a famine, causing death, especially to the poor folk. Due to the presence of decaying corpses, the evil spirits began to haunt the city. This was followed by a pestilence. Plagued by these three fears of famine, non-human beings, and pestilence, the citizens sought the help of the Buddha, who was then living at Rajagaha. Followed by the large number of monks, including the Venerable Ananda, his attendant disciple, the Buddha came to the city of Vesali. With the arrival of the Master, there were torrential rains which swept away the putrefying corpses. The atmosphere became purified. The city was clean. Thereupon the Buddha delivered this jewel discourse, Ratana Sutta, to the Venerable Ananda and gave him instructions as to how he should tour the city with the dispersed citizens, reciting the discourse as a mark of protection to the people of Vesali. The Venerable Ananda followed the instructions and sprinkled the sanctified water from the Buddha's own alms bowl. As a consequence, the evil spirits were exorcised. That pestilence subsided. Thereafter, the Venerable Ananda returned with the citizens of Vesali to the public hall where the Buddha and his disciples had assembled awaiting his arrival. There, the Buddha recited the same jewel discourse to the gathering. Whatever beings, non-humans, are assembled here, terrestrial or celestial, may they all have peace of mind, and may they listen attentively to these words. O beings, listen closely. May you all radiate loving kindness to those human beings who, by day and night, bring offerings to you, offer merit to you. Wherefore, protect them with the diligence. Whatever treasure there be either here or in the world beyond, whatever precious jewel there be in the heavenly worlds, there is none comparable with the Tathagata, the perfect one. This precious jewel is in the Buddha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. That cessation, that detachment, that deathlessness, Nibbana supreme, the calm and collected Sakyan Sage, the Buddha had realized. There is not comparable to this Nibbana Dharma. This precious jewel is the Dharma. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. 4 ways of describing the Nibbana. The Supreme Buddha extolled a path of purity, the Noble Eightfold Path, calling it the path which unfailingly brings concentration. There is not comparable to this concentration. This precious jewel is the Dharma. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. The 8th person extolled by virtuous men constitute 4 pairs. They are the disciples of the Buddha and are worthy of offerings. Gifts given to them yield rich results. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. With a steadfast mind and applying themselves well in the dispensation of the Buddha Gotama, free from defilements, they have attained to that which should be attained, arahantship, encountering the deathless. They enjoy the peace of Nibbana freely obtained. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. As a post deep planted in the earth stands unshaken by the winds from the 4 quarters, so too I declare is the righteous man who comprehends with wisdom the noble truths. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. Those who realize the noble truths well taught by him who is profound in wisdom, the Buddha, even though they may be exceedingly heedless, they will not take an existence in the realm of sense spheres. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. With his gaining of insight, he abandons 3 states of mind, namely self-illusion, doubt, and indulgence in meaningless rites and rituals, should there be any. He is also fully free from the 4 states of woe, and therefore incapable of committing the 6 major wrongdoings. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. Any evil action he may still do by deed, word, or thought, he is incapable of concealing it, since it has been proclaimed that such concealing is impossible for one who has seen the path of Nibbana. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. As the woodland groves, though in the early heat of the summer month, are crowned with blossoming flowers, even so is the sublime Dharma leading to the calm of Nibbana, which is taught by the Buddha for the highest good. This precious jewel is the Buddha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. The peerless excellent one, the Buddha, the knower of Nibbana, the giver of Nibbana, the bringer of the Noble Path, taught the excellent Dharma. This precious jewel is the Buddha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. Their past karma is spent, their new karma no more arises. Their mind to future becoming is unattached. Their germ of rebirth consciousness has died. They have no more desire for reliving. Those wise men fade out of existence as the flame of this lamp which had just faded away. This precious jewel is the Sangha. By this asseveration of the truth, may there be happiness. Whatever beings, non-humans, are assembled here, terrestrial or celestial, come, let us salute the Buddha, the Tathagata, the Perfect One. Honored by gods and men, may there be happiness. Whatever beings are assembled here, terrestrial or celestial, come, let us salute the Perfect Dhamma. Honored by God and man, may there be happiness. Whatever beings are assembled here, terrestrial or celestial, come, let us salute the perfect Sangha. Honored by gods and men, may there be happiness. So last week we studied verse 7. And verse 7 it says, with a steadfast mind and applying themselves well in the dispensation of the Buddha Gotama, free from defilements, they have attained to that which should be attained. Arahantship, encountering the deathless. So verse 7, we remember verse 3, it was talking about the Buddha, the gem in the Buddha. And verse 4 and 5 talks about the gem in the Dhamma, which was the path to Nibbana and then Nibbana. And then verse 6 and 7 is talking about the jewels in the Sangha. So verse 7 by itself is the Buddha actually praised the Arahant, those people who actually have attained Arahantship as supreme jewel of the Sangha. Supreme jewel of the Sangha. Because he is able to maintain a steadfast mind, and he, with such a deep concentration, or you can use the word jhana, he is able to purify his own mind and eradicate all the fetters of ignorance, craving, anger, and be able to penetrate through the truth, through this conditioned existence, past this conditioned existence into the unconditioned, or into the deathless, or into the Nibbana. Okay, that's why the Buddha actually praised the Arahant as the supreme jewel in the Sangha, because of him having that steadfast mind, because of him having that complete liberation from all the fetters, and because of him being able to penetrate through this existence into the deathless. That's why he, an Arahant, is so supreme. And because of this truth, we channel ourselves into that existence, or that practice, or that is being inspired by these saintly beings called Aryan. And may this truth actually bring what? Safety, security, and happiness. So that's the beauty of really understanding the meanings behind all these words, not just merely reading those words. Otherwise, how can you actually have this have this mind to asseverate towards the truth, right? You won't. You would just like, oh, okay, just Ratana Sutta. How many of you have heard about the chanting of Ratana Sutta? Many of you, almost every one of you here on the screen, almost every one of you have heard this Ratana Sutta in chanting, especially if you have attended some longer meditation courses. And a lot of teachers actually chant this Ratana Sutta. Because why? It's appreciation and gratitude of the jewels, and also is to look up, to develop those similar qualities ourselves. Okay, so much for introduction. Okay, so verse 8, we are going to study verse 8. As a post deep planted in the earth stands unshaken by the winds from the four quarters. So in the old days, I don't know whether you can still find those posts now in India. Maybe Varsha can tell me. Those posts are really tall, 8 to 10 meters tall. I think there is still one post somewhere there. It's called the Ashoka post. Ashoka post. Yeah. And it's actually in commemoration of King Ashoka, how he actually helped to spread the Dharma from India, or from Nepal, India area to East Asian countries like Afghanistan, all those places, and then from there spread out to Southeast Asia, and then lastly to North America. Okay, so North America is actually very, very young in encountering the Buddha. Dharma is only like less than 200 years, so it's pretty young. Okay, so those are the city posts being put in the city to actually, and then there are gates to close in between. So those are actually protecting the city. And these posts are really deeply planted into the earth. And the Buddha actually is using this deep planted post as a simile to show what? To show the unshaken confidence of an Aryan. And this Aryan, mind you, is not an Arhat anymore. It's talking about the first stage of attainment. What is the first state? You should know. The 4 pairs. Which is the first pair? Who said that? Catherine from San Francisco. Stream enterer, good. Okay, stream enterer, Sotapanna. So this, the Buddha actually using the post, the simile of a post to actually praise the unshakable confidence or the unshakable faith of a stream enterer. That means the faith is deeply planted in the mind or on the path. And on which path? Eightfold Noble Path, right? So this and the Eightfold Noble Path, because it's so deeply planted in the earth, inside the earth. So when the wind comes from four sides, the north side, the east side, the south side, the west side, it will not shake this post. Okay, so in the old days, these posts are called Indriya post. Indriya post. So when the Buddha said, when would such a person will not be shaken by these four winds. Is somebody who actually sees the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so that is the next verse, all right, the next sentence. So we have to know the four winds, what does it represent? Really just the wind from all the four sides? What about the winds to our mind? What are the winds to our mind that can easily shake us? Anybody? Or the winds to our existence that can easily shake us? Laurie, did you put your hand up? Okay.
I was going to suggest something like doubt.
Okay.
Lack of faith.
All right. Okay. What about in the human world?
What do you mean?
In the human world? Or in the human world, is there any wind that come from the human world that can actually affect us?
Is this the four pairs of
Yes. You remember them?
Versha.
Versha.
Oh, I was going to say six.
6 winds?
No, I was going to say the sickness, old age. Like I was thinking of that as being the four things.
Okay, those are, yes, those are actually affecting the physical.
gain and loss,
Gain and loss. Remember,
pain and pleasure,
pain and pleasure.
fame and disrepute.
Huh?
Fame and disrepute.
Fame and what?
And disrepute.
Disrepute, yes.
Be nice ignorance.
Huh?
Be nice ignorance.
Not ignorance. Có bài phung mà.
Oh, praise and blame.
Praise and blame, yes. The 8 winds. Remember the 8 winds. The 8 winds. So, these are the 4 winds in the nature, but the 8 winds from human world that can actually easily strike us. Okay, so don't forget about that 8 winds, all right? So those 8 winds can easily shake us up. So what should we do? What should we do? It says, I declare that is the righteous man who comprehends with wisdom the Four Noble Truths. So, why would we be easily shaken up by winds? Why? Because our mind is not strongly planted. Strongly planted in what? In understanding the way our life is. So, and here he actually pointed out, because, or you can say, I declare is the righteous man who comprehends with wisdom the noble truths. Then I can say, I declare is the unrighteous man who do not comprehend the Four Noble Truths. Right? So that's us who do not comprehend the Four Noble Truths. And the Four Noble Truths, why do we need to understand the Four Noble Truths? Why? It is so important. So you all know about what are the Four Noble Truths, right? You should be able to actually do it inside out, upside down, from the end to the beginning, from the start to the end. You can usually just voice it out, no problem. You don't have to think at all. Right? The Four Noble Truths. So the first is sufferings and the cause of sufferings, and the end to the sufferings and the path to the end of the sufferings. So we all understand the sufferings and the cause of the sufferings. Actually, the Buddha the Buddha actually laid it out in a very different way for us, because he told us that there is sufferings first, and then there is cause of sufferings. And then there is this end to the sufferings, and then there is this path to the end of the sufferings. He should actually tell us, this is the cause of sufferings. And tell us, these are the causes of your sufferings. And these are sufferings. And this is the way to total liberation of sufferings. And this is total liberation of sufferings. But he told us otherwise. He actually reversed the sequence. He told us this is sufferings. He told us the result first. It's not the cause. And then he bring in the cause of sufferings. Why is that? Have you ever think about that? Ma?
Deep suffering, then seeing the cause of suffering, or to understand the cause of suffering. So I think the comprehension starting from low to high.
Yeah. Okay, good. That's good. Anybody else? Maria?
I think that you need to understand the cause of suffering so that you can enter the path to be able to stop suffering.
Okay.
You need to know what is causing it before you can fix it.
Okay. My question is, why did he actually say these Four Noble Truths in such sequence? Why did he label it like, this is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, and this is cessation, this is the path to cessation? Sufferings.
Because sometimes people, they are sick, they don't realize they are sick. So they have to know they are in the suffering.
Okay, good, very good. So we have an answer from here. Because sometimes people are sick, but they don't realize that they are sick. So they need to what?
First of all, they do admit they are sick so that they can seek for help.
So they admit that they are sick, then they will start to look for help. Okay? So in other words, sufferings is already the result of your past courses. Those are the results, the consequence. And the causes of sufferings are the seeds of these results. Right? Because we, as ignorant beings, you just tell me, this is going good. I tell you, I think some of you are parents, you probably know. You probably have that vivid experience. You tell your kids, you better don't play with drugs. You're going to have big problems, or you better don't go out too late, or you better study hard. Right? Because otherwise you will fail. You will fail. The failure is the consequence of you go out all the time. You go to use booze, you go to use drugs. Using drugs and using booze are the cause of failure. And failure is the consequence. Failure is the suffering. And using booze, using drug, and not studying hard, going out all the time, having fun, those are the causes of sufferings. You see? Do your children listen to you? No. Here said, two parents here, they said no, they shook their head. No, they don't. Why? Because they really don't know the results yet. They haven't experienced the results. For us old folks, we have so much suffering throughout the whole life. I have had so much suffering throughout my whole life. And I do understand the cause of sufferings. Nobody, I don't need people to tell me. I already know. So I learned to be smarter and don't plant those seeds for causing so much sufferings, right? Deborah, you have something to say? Okay, all right. So we have to. So everybody, all of you know actually what the Four Noble Truths are. So we really, he said, the righteous man who comprehends with wisdom, not just blind faith, not just blind belief, but with wisdom, really understand this Four Noble Truths. Then he becomes a righteous man. So in order to really become a righteous man, one needs to actually see one's sufferings, the causes of those sufferings, and vow to actually liberate themselves, to free themselves out from all these sufferings. And we need to find out the main cause for these sufferings. And in the Dhammapada, you all know this is my favorite book, Dhammapada. And I'm going to share with you a verse in Dhammapada, from Dhammapada. It's verse 212, if you have the Dhammapada with you, 212. It says, from endearment springs grief. From endearment springs fear. For him who is wholly free, that means totally, completely. From endearment, there is no grief. Whence then fear? So, how do you understand this verse? Endearment. How do you understand this word, endearment? Huh? Laurie?
Does that mean attachment?
Yes. Yeah. Attachment, craving, greed, always grasping on, those endearments. So from endearment springs grief. From endearment springs fear because you're afraid to lose, right? You're afraid to lose. So there is fear coming. For him who is wholly free from endearment, so is completely free from these craving, there is no grief. So where is fear? So this is 212 in Dhammapada that I wanted to share with you tonight is, so for a stream enterer who actually penetrate through the truth of the Four Noble Truths, and he's totally free of what? Craving. And you see, craving is really the main cause of all our sufferings and the main cause for all our mental impurities and all our selfishness and all our fear. For the Buddha, for the Arahant, they will never have fear. Because why? They don't have any craving. So no cravings, where does fear come from, right? So, because we are so ignorant, that's why we do not remember or do not understand how this craving really brings on so much fear and how this craving brings on so much entanglements and how this craving brings on so much pain and sufferings. So we have to actually cultivate this kind of awareness, this kind of mindfulness to understand whenever we start to suffer from this craving, or whenever there is suffering in our life, or we encounter suffering, can we start to dissect out the suffering? Why am I so afraid? Why am I so moody? Why am I so whatever, emotional? dissect the emotion and ask yourself why. And where does it come from? What are the causes? At that time, you are actually using the Four Noble Truths to dissect out your suffering. I can guarantee you, whenever you feel emotional and you remember this Four Noble Truths, this idea of Four Noble Truths, and you start to sit there and you dissect it out, I can guarantee you, you will soon be able to see through, to see a tunnel of light. And you will start to understand all these sufferings actually come from yourself, come from your own reaction. Because I experienced that myself, totally experienced that myself. And it actually has helped me to become a better person, to become a more considerate person, to understand better of why people are acting out like that. And I become a little bit more accepting to how people are acting out, to how people are so emotional, and how am I being so emotional. Accepting myself first, then I start to accept others more and more. Okay, so this mindfulness, this awareness of this Four Noble Truths constantly arising in life. We constantly are actually encountering sufferings, don't we? Yes? No? Yeah, days in and days out. Okay, so we constantly encounter sufferings. If we, at the time that we encounter that, these words of the Buddha spring up in our mind, and we become aware, and we start to sit down and take a deep breath and start to dissect. Then, at that moment, any moment that we are able to sit down and take a deep breath, and okay, let me look at it from this point of view. At that moment, you can actually really, really bite your teeth and understand. With the understanding of this Four Noble Truths, is actually allow you to anchor yourself back into the earth, back into the Dharma. It's just like pounding the post back there with the backhoe. Go back down there into the Four Noble Truths. Okay? Then you actually reinforce the strength. Reinforce that strength. And nobody can shake that up. Okay? So why people can shake it up, why the eight winds can shake it up, because it's not deeply planted. It's too shallow. Okay? So the mind is too shallow, really. And so we need to start to see that in our lives. In the old days, when the Buddha starting to teach, he only starting to teach the Four Noble Truths to those people who are ripened to go into the stream entering. Not just everybody. Now, for anybody who actually come into the words of the Buddha, the first thing they hear is the Four Noble Truths. And I can see the difference. In the beginning, when I heard the Four Noble Truths, I just felt, wow, it really didn't click. It really didn't hit me. And sometimes I felt that it's so pessimistic too. But throughout the years of practice, throughout the years of vicissitudes in life, even as a nun, and even and with all the challenges, I start to really understand this Four Noble Truths the way it is being taught. And so it could be very difficult the really seeing the Four Noble Truths is really not an easy task. In the old days, the Buddha only taught those to those who are ripened to become Sotapanna. And we are way too far from being a Sotapanna yet. So with our meditation, most of you are meditators, and I wish that you could actually start to see these Four Noble Truths in your meditation. Why? Because why and how is actually very easy. It's actually very easy. When the mind is focused and the attention is really brought in, and the mind and the body are really unified, it actually becomes a very powerful tool. The whole mind-body existence become a very powerful instrument or tool for further investigation into our own existence. And why I say you need to actually examine this Four Noble Truths in your meditation is because when this body and mind become unified, becomes such a strong tool, you start to really understand the arising of sufferings, the arising of thoughts that could carry on to bring on sufferings. Right? For example, when you are so strong in your meditation, and all of a sudden, remember what I said just now, I think in meditation, the concentration could be broken, right? Because maybe one thought could be so strong, or an emotion could be so strong that it just breaks your continuity of awareness. And at that time, if you start to react, you said, where is my concentration? Darn thought. Then, over there, at that moment, there's already suffering. Dissatisfaction. Suffering is not just suffering. Dissatisfaction, unhappiness, right? Obstacles, whatever you want to label them. It's not just pain. It's not just like ups and downs. No. You wish this continuity to go on, and it was broken. And you start to react to it. Then, at that moment, there's already suffering. At that moment, can you start to realize, oh, this is suffering. And what is the cause of suffering? Because the concentration is being broken. Because of that thought, I react to that thought. And you start to really apply this Four Noble Truths into your meditation. And when you start to further on to investigate is, why would such a thought be so powerful to break that continuity of awareness? Why?
It's enticing.
It's enticing, yeah. It's enticing, right? And sometimes after that continuity is being broken, because it's so enticing, you just don't want to give it up. So thought after thought, you go to strengthen that thought like a snowballing. Sometimes it's not enticing, sometimes it could be
Repulsive.
yeah, yeah. It could be ripples effect. So you then at that time, don't get carried away by those. Actually, you should start to investigate that experience. Hey, where did that experience come from? Which part of the mind is reacting to that experience? How many parts of the mind are there? 10 parts? 5 parts? 6 parts? 4 parts? How many parts? Just put up your fingers. 5 parts. You think how many? 4. Who says 4? Put up your hand. Deborah, put up your hand. Good. Okay, Bin, put up your hand. Yeah, 4 parts of the mind. Which 4? You think? You think from China? 你講中文啊？嚇？4 parts of the mind， 心嘅4部分。受 feeling part of the mind， 想 perception part of the mind， 行 mental reaction of the mind， Sik consciousness of the mind, or in Pali term, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, and Vijnana. 4 parts of the mind, remember. Then you start to investigate which part of the mind is really causing the sufferings. And you really need to investigate the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates including the physical body, right? The material, right? And then the mental. The mental have 4 parts. The material have 4 elements. Okay? So when you start to investigate this physical and you start to really investigate with a very concentrated mind, you will start to experience this whole physical existence is arising and passing, bubbling, arising and passing, dissolving, solidifying, dissolving, solidifying. And when all this solidity start to fall away and you start to experience the stream of vibrations constantly arising and falling away, then you start to really understand the impermanency that Buddha has continuously reminded us, the anicca, the impermanent nature of our existence. And then all this come and go, then you start to direct deeper to understand the aggregates, the other 4 aggregates. Then you start to understand the Vedana already. Then you start to understand the Sanya, and then start to understand the Sankara, and then the Vijnana. Of course, you don't do it one step at a time. Sometimes it could just be like a simultaneously like this. So that investigation allows one to go deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper. And then when that arising and passing gets superseded, you will just replace by a plain perception of everything within this body and mind, breaking up and dissolving, from moment to moment. You continue, and then as I said, you continue to also investigate the consciousness and your reaction mind. By doing this, hopefully one day or one moment that you can actually penetrate through this conditioned existence, like with this conditioned existence of the mind and the body, with the mind having 4 parts to it, you penetrate through this truth and really push yourself towards this unconditioned. So then at that moment, that is the stream entrance. It's not easy because we are so endeared to our own existence. Okay? So that's when really you start to see the noble truth really in your meditation, really seeing through the cessation and the path to cessation. Okay, so the Buddha said also in the commentary, and a lot of, sorry, a little bit overrun this tonight. In the commentary, it says even a Sotapanna could be an ordinary human being. It could be anybody among us. And they could get married, and then they could, they could have children. They don't necessarily be monastics, and they can be good parents, and they can get angry also sometimes upon criticism, and they can also get sick because they have to die, right? They have to die in order to come back. In order to come back for how many lives? At least 7 lives, right? So, and remember, Ananda was a Sotapanna. So Ananda, throughout his whole life serving the Buddha, was a Sotapanna. And when the Buddha was going into Nibbana, he was weeping like a child, going to lose his father. Okay? So Ananda did not attain arahantship until the Buddha passed into Nibbana. So, for here it said he is the righteous man because after he actually attained the stream entering, he will not go and seek any other kind of teachers or any other kind of teachings anymore, because he knows this teaching is the supreme, is the most supreme, because he knows this teaching is the jewel. And there is no need to go further to search. So that's why it says a Sotapanna is just like the Indriya's pillar, the Indriya's post, which is deeply planted into the earth, because he has that confidence in the jewel of the Dharma. And it will not be easily shaken by the winds from the 4 directions. So those who see the 4 Noble Truths are just like the post, which is not shakeable, okay, by the 4 winds. And those who don't see the 4 Noble Truths, you know what they used to compare? Cottonwood ball, cottonwood ball, like cotton, a tuft of cotton. You blow it, and then it will like what? It will waver to that side. You blow it this side, it goes that side. So it keeps on wavering all the time. It's just like those people who don't see through the 4 Noble Truths is just like a tuft of cotton. But when the wind blows onto it, it just wavers. Okay? So the Buddha is praising the Sotapanna. The strength of a Sotapanna is like the strength of this post, being deeply buried into the earth, not being shaken by the 4 winds in the world. So he said, by this aspiration of the truth, aspire, being inspired by this, and one's mind is channeled or tunneled into that kind of strength and that kind of qualities, and may these kind of wishes or may this aspiration bring safety, security, and peace. Whew. Okay? Good? Even Sotapanna is not really, even Sotapanna is really just an Aryan. It's just so wonderful. So don't just merely read the words. Please understand the meaning behind all these words. And there are really, really deep meanings behind all these words. And when you actually understand them, you can actually incorporate them into your practice, daily practice, either in meditation, in your walking, in your dealing with people, dealing with your family, dealing with your colleagues, anything. The Four Noble Truths is really a very strong tool to actually allow us to be liberated from our own sufferings. I can guarantee you this. That has helped me a long, long way. Four Noble Truths. Okay? Okay. May these blessings extend to all, that we with all the other living beings together will attain the Buddha way. May we wish that more and more people will encounter the wise words of the Buddha, seriously studying them, understand them, and practice them, and help themselves to liberate from all the entanglements that cause so much unhappiness, pain, miseries, and sufferings. And may they be eventually and ultimately be free, be happy, and be peaceful.